The bell that rang backwards, from the annotated journals of Artemius E. Spelt, Occult Engineer and Detective of the Arcane. The village of St. Aubrey's Hollow lay hidden beneath perpetual fog, as if time itself had hesitated there. I arrived just past dusk, carried by a brasswood coach drawn by reluctant geldings. The coachman did not speak, not when we approached the old milestone, not when his eyes went flat as coins, not even when I offered payment. He simply unhitched my trunk with shaking hands, turned the horses about and disappeared into the mist, wheels vanishing into silence. The church stood at the centre like a patient infection, its spire crooked slightly left, as though craning to hear something beneath the earth. Cobbled paths sank into mud, smoke curled from narrow chimneys, and a stillness hung over the place that felt deliberate. I was met at the edge of the chapel green by Cleric Merritt Vale, a man thinned by worry, with ink-stained fingertips and a visible tremor. He took my hand briefly, then pulled back as if my skin burned. "You're not late," he said. "Not that time holds shape anymore." "The bell?" I asked, adjusting the cronolines hanging from a silver chain at my neck. The glass disc clouded instantly, a concerning sign. "It rings before the hour," he confirmed, "and something comes with it." We stepped inside the chapel. Its once simple interior had warped. Shadows clung to the vaulted beams like oil. The walls groaned like ribs pressed from within. Candles flickered with no breeze, their flames curling away from the altar as though repelled. And the bell, a monstrous thing overhead, hung silent yet listening. I removed my tachyon compass from its leather case. The needle spun wildly, then pointed directly down. As we descended into the crypt, Merritt began to speak. He sounded like a man unburdening a nightmare. "There was a boy named Cyrus," he said, "only 16, worked at the bakery. Quiet sort, liked riddles. He came here to clean the chapel floors, found something beneath the altar, an old stone tablet buried shallow. That's when it began. What happened to him? He began walking backwards. At first just for fun, he said. Then he said walking forward felt wrong. A few days later he stopped speaking altogether, wrote only in spirals." Merritt's face twisted. "We buried him last week. He tried to walk through the bell rope and didn't come out right," he continued, voice taut. "And there's more. I aged backwards for 7 minutes. The widow Adley, she aged in reverse for 4 days. A woman's pregnancy sped up so fast she delivered in under an hour. The child spoke Latin. Fluently. She was 2 days old. The crypt air thickened with mould and iron. My ethereal resonator clicked rapidly in my pocket, its valves opening and closing of their own accord. Along the walls were Latin inscriptions, some rewritten backwards. Mortuis non dicamus ultimum. Initium sunt. We do not give the dead the last word. They are the beginning. At the bottom lay a stone slab, newer than the surrounding floor. Freshly unearthed soil clung to its edges. "This rose from the ground during the last bell toll," Merritt whispered. "There was no grave here before." I drew out my chronoreticule, a device of gears, glass, and a sliver of haunted mirror, and held it to the slab. The glass fogged black. A spiral mark appeared within it, a cross turned inward. "That's the sigil of Reverend Silas Doran," I said slowly. "Excommunicated in 1721. Believed death was not an end, but a circle. He wrote sermons backwards, claimed they summoned echoes of God's thoughts before creation. He was buried in the sea, wasn't he? Yes, with his works. They were not books, one reads twice." Resting against the slab's base was a child's spinning top, simple wood, a name etched in one side, Cyrus M. I knelt, reaching for it, but the air thickened around my hand like syrup. The top pulsed faintly. Through my spectral monocle I could see them. Threads, nearly invisible silver filaments trailing from the top to the crypt walls, the floor, and up to the bell. "It's the anchor," I breathed. "A temporal tether." Suddenly the bell rang, a jarring, wet sound that shook the stone beneath our feet. It rang not with chime, but with a deep sucking noise, like lungs filling backwards. The walls bled old candle soot. My reticule snapped in my hand. Merritt began to choke. His hands clawed at his throat, his lips sealed, flesh sewing shut like wet paper. His body lifted from the ground by unseen threads, his eyes rolling back. He was convulsing, his tongue speaking in reverse, a sermon backward, syllables malformed. I acted swiftly. From my case, I withdrew a mirror lined in silver runes, angling it to reflect the slab and catch the curvature of the bell tower above. I removed my phase shift hammer, a consecrated brass tool etched with temporal sigils. I smashed the floor beside the slab. The stone cracked. When I reached for the toy, pain bloomed across my palm. The toy screamed, not with sound, but through my teeth. The crypt shook. I needed vinegar. Blood ink spells can sometimes be broken with it, if consecrated correctly. I sprinted from the crypt, through the chapel into the rain-soaked square. I hammered on doors, desperate. The third house yielded, a bottle of malt vinegar sitting in a windowsill like a forgotten offering. I activated my alchemical etcher, its copper stylus glowing blue. Using it, I carved the unbinding spiral into the cork and spoke the invocation. Shetvar Lu Natham, vinegar, return this blood to water, reverse the curse, undo the turn. The liquid shimmered, sour and golden. Back in the crypt, Merritt's body hung limp in mid-air, his skin covered in spirals growing deeper with each passing second. His veins had begun to move against his pulse. I uncorked the vinegar and splashed it across the top. The threads ignited in lines of blue fire recoiling from the wood. The toy burst into flame and dissolved like wet ash. Merritt dropped, coughing, sucking in air. His eyes wept blood, but he was alive. The bell above us moaned, not a chime, but a dying groan, as if something too old to name had finally stopped watching. I burned the remnants of the top in a brazier lined with salt and silver. The slab did not return to the earth, but it no longer hummed. My ether detector remained silent in my pocket, its dials steady. Back in the village square, the fog had lifted. A boy walked past me and waved. "Mornin', mister," he chirped. Later, I climbed the tower alone. The bell sat still, but beneath it I found scratches, as if something had been clawing its way out of the brass. I ran my spectral imprinter across the surface, capturing the echo memories of the metal. Deep within the lip of the bell, etched in reversed script, "Not all silence is peace." Before I left, I placed a stone on Cyrus's grave. I didn't say a prayer, I said a name. The bell no longer rings. But if you press your ear to the ground in St. Aubrey's Hollow, and the fog is just right, you might hear it, far below, ringing backwards. As I walked down the winding path toward the coach station, my chronolens ticked steadily again. Yet the wind carried a whisper, soft, almost inaudible. "Start again." Filed under Chrono-Occult Sound-Based Phenomena Inverse Sanctification. Recovered artifact spiral toy destroyed, ash-sealed in mirror box. Another page turns soon. The next entry in the Spelt Journals Volume 1 will find you, if you let it. Stay close.